Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast, where we discuss what's happening in the cryptosphere and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Buckle up and huddle on while we dive in and get weird. Here are your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mystic Monday. Kim, what's going on?
Ooh, not too much. I'm excited for today. Markets don't look so excitable, but I'm excited to talk about it and to give maybe a different perspective, which might also come with some correction, but it's good correction. It's life-giving.
That's right. Well, speaking of the markets not being so good, let's just quickly run through them. So 24 hours, Bitcoin is down 14.5%. Ethereum is down 17%. Over 7 days, Bitcoin is down 20% and Ethereum is down 30%. Ouch. Both of them have taken a very steep dive lately. And you guys know that we like to bring up coins in the top 100 that are not following the normal trend of the market. However, today, everything in the top 100 is red, except for a few stable coins, which will always stay where are supposed to stay where they're at. And so, it has just been, it's a bit of a dark day, depending on what your opinion is of the crypto markets. But that's sort of what brought us to today's topic, because we wanted to discuss your perspective on how you look at things, where you're getting your value from. These are some things we've addressed before, but it's important to remember them when you are in the midst of the struggle. And I mean, honestly, we don't record this as much for you guys. So a lot of times we record it for us. So the things we're talking about are the things we need to remind ourselves of. So
this is true. This is super true. And I feel like we've been talking about perspective a lot on the Mystic Mondays, right? But I think this just must be the theme that the Lord has recently. I will tell you, we were sure to press in with him before we started this episode, before we got the topic for this episode, just to kind of see what's on his heart. What does he want? What does he want us to talk about with this? And this is really where he led us. And so I think it's important. It's a good reminder for us. I hope it's a good reminder for you all as well. First, let's talk about this. So with the markets being so far down, as we were just looking at the indicators and things, we also looked at the fear and greed index for Bitcoin or for crypto.
Right.
And it is at way over on the side of fear. It's at an 11 today. Which is extreme fear. And honestly, I've heard of the fear and greed index before. I don't really understand what it's there for. So I just scrolled down on the website and read a little bit. And so I do want to share a bit about why they have this index, what it's really measuring, and why. So this is what the website says. The crypto market behavior. Wait a minute.
I think your microphone turned off.
It got unplugged. Wonder if we can cut that out. Maybe not. Maybe they'll just hear us talk about all of our technical difficulties and we'll just get over it and be real people.
That's true.
Okay, so the crypto market behavior is very emotional. We all know this. We've talked about the emotions involved in trading before. People tend to get greedy when the market is rising, which results in FOMO. Also, people will often sell their coins in irrational reaction of seeing red numbers. With the fear and greed index, they try to save you from your own emotional overreactions. And there are two simple assumptions they do this by. Number one, extreme fear can be a sign that investors are too worried. That could be a buying opportunity. And number two, when investors are getting too greedy, that means the market is due for a correction. Therefore, they analyze the current sentiment of the Bitcoin market and crunch the numbers into a simple meter from 0 to 100. 0 means extreme fear, while 100 means extreme greed. I'll tell you today it was at an 11, which is in the extreme fear mode. There's a long explanation, but that's what the fear and greed index is. I had to ask this question, so I'll ask again. Josh, is there a fear and greed index for the regular markets?
There is actually. It's called the VIX, VIX, if you wish to trade it. But it functions the same way. 0 to 100, 0 being extreme fear, 100 being extreme greed, 50 being neutral. And today in the normal stock market, it's at a 19. And so slightly less fear than the crypto market, but I think that that's probably to be expected, just because it's the difference in the type of market. But yes, it certainly exists in both places, and both places right now are pointing to extreme fear. And one of the reasons that when I was just looking at articles that it pointed to was that inflation has once again hit high numbers, is beyond what was expected for the month of May. And so some people have pointed to those numbers coming out. But I don't know, I don't know for sure if that's the whole reason for the current fear or not. But
Well, I want to talk about just the concept of fear and greed. But before I do that, I'd like to talk about a little bit when we were seeking the Lord about this episode and what he was really speaking about and the main message that he's wanting to get out. He wanted to talk about value and worth and what that actually means from his perspective, which is what we're continually being drawn back to, is looking from his perspective about things going on. So whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's in our identity, whether it's in what's going on in the world, where we fit in the body, any of these things, right? He's continually drawing us back to look from this perspective of where he is. It's just this higher perspective.
right.
And I don't know if any of you guys have ever done this, but he's led me through a time where he has me do this a lot, is he will draw me into him and have me look through his eyes at people around me. And when I do that, when he shows me that, the amount of value and worth that I can see in an individual is increased exponentially.
Yeah.
Because I see through his eyes, and he has intentionality in every part of his creation. And that's you, that's me, that's every other person on this planet, whether you would deem them good or bad, worthy or not. Right? He has his own perspective, and it can be very jarring. It can be very revelatory to look from that perspective. But what he wants people to know is that he's the one who determines the value and the worth of a person. It is actually not what you have or what you produce, or what you do or how you operate in the markets. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with who he says you are. And so when we're looking at these things, it's an interesting thing when we go over the state of the market, when we give the market updates every day, because we're giving the value based on the world standard. But honestly, if we look through the Father's eyes at even the crypto markets, we can see what the value really is. And it gives this different perspective than what the world is giving, which is the same thing I'm talking about doing with other people. And I think right now, with the markets being so down, and it's just been a couple months now of continually going down. Honestly, since like December, it's just kind of been going down and down and down and down. And I think if you are heavy into any markets, it could be easy to slip into getting really down on yourself, getting down on your own value, getting down on your own worth, getting down on your abilities, what you're created to be, all of these things. It would be easy to get wrapped up in that. But I'm here to encourage you to kind of take a step back and go to the Father and ask him to see through his perspective and realize what your value actually is, what the value of those around you actually is. I want to put that out in front because I don't want to lead with anything but life.
Yeah.
And then we need to talk about fear and greed. So we just talked about the index, but in my experience with the Father, both fear and greed, they both are adversarial spirits that do exist, like in the spiritual realm. We all know what fear does, and it works in many different realms, but greed also is one of those spirits that will really make you think only about yourself. And together with fear, this is where you see fear of missing out, right? This is fear and greed, like just combined in this pretty little package. That's FOMO, right? It's like, I don't have this, I'm afraid of not having it, right? That is fear and greed, fear of missing out. But I think this is why he's encouraging us to really look at our value and our worth through his eyes and not through the eyes of fear and greed. This is what the world is measuring our worth, the worth of others, the worth of the markets against. I mean, there's this index. You can literally trade. This is what blew my mind. After the Father started talking about this, you can literally trade into fear and greed in the stock markets.
Yes. Is that really an asset you want?
Not really an asset that you want, right? Like that's not a good trade.
Right.
Well, anyway, we've talked about this. It's an interesting thing. We have this definition of mammon in our episode notes every time for like the last 2 or 3 months. And we knew we were going to talk about it, but we just haven't done it yet. And today's the day.
Yes, it really is. Before we get to that, I just wanted to touch on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about perspective, you're talking about where your value comes from. And this phrase that you will see in investing all the time kept coming up to my mind. It was past performance is not a guarantee of future performance. And it the reason it's on my mind is because often we place our value in what we have done. And what we have done is not a guarantee of what we will do. Especially if we are learning to change our value system to the Father's value system, if we're learning to shift our perspective to the Father's perspective, then certainly our past does not guarantee our future. But it does if that's what we hold on to. If that's the value system we hold on to, if we buy into the system of mammon, then that's what's going to control us. And it makes me think, we don't have to get super theological, but I do believe that one of the things that changed the most in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve were kicked out is their perspective changed on what things were. And it's almost like Adam forgot where he came from, where creation came from, who created it, and all of a sudden he becomes subject to the things that were in the garden, which he helped create. He was co-creator with God in that. And we have that same opportunity of becoming subject to the things we've created, becoming subject to the systems in this earth. But if we are able to step outside of that, to rise above it, to change our perspective of it, then we can see a land that is full of giants and still say, that's the promised land. It's easy. Let's go take it. Yeah.
I think that's so important. That's exactly what it is. So we look at Adam and Eve, and they switched their perspective. This is what happened when they ate the fruit, is their perspective switched, their source of supply switched.
Yeah.
Right? And we are flipping that script, and we have the ability to go back and get our source of supply right again, right? So let's talk about mammon a little bit. So this is the definition I have. I'm reading this to you. Mammon or mammon, people say it differently, in the New Testament of the Bible is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or any entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. Does that sound familiar for the markets?
Especially just that line, greedy pursuit of gain.
Right. So the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke both quote Jesus using the word in a phrase often rendered in English as, you cannot serve both God and mammon. So if we go back to that definition, and it is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, any entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. You can't serve both God and that. I think this applies so much to where we are in the markets right now. Where are you getting your value? Are you getting your value from the mammon, right? This promise of wealth, any kind of money, a pursuit of gain? Is that where you're finding your value, or are you finding it from him? Because if you are finding it from him, the volatility in the markets right now, the continued downside, I would say, which sounds really negative, it doesn't have to be so negative, because it doesn't define you. It doesn't determine your value. It doesn't actually determine your worth. You could sit here and be thinking in your brain, and you might be doing it right now. Obviously, my worth, if the dollar amount is going down, then my worth is going down. You're still sourcing from mammon. You're still thinking that your worth is determined by the number of dollars you have in your account.
Yeah, I would like to propose that mammon is more so the greedy pursuit of gain rather than only money and material wealth, because those things aren't inherently bad. What I would propose to you is that it's your source of supply.
Yes.
If Father is your source of supply, then he can give you those things to steward, and so that you can operate in the earth. And that's wonderful. But if those things replace Father as your source of supply, then that is when you can't serve both, and all of a sudden you're serving the other one. And I just have this phrase. So Yeshua teaches us to pray, give us this day our daily bread, which is a referral to the manna that was given in the wilderness to the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have this phrase in my mind of mammon or manna. Like, which one? Which one is going to feed you today? And that's the question I would like to leave you guys with is which one is your source of supply? Mammon or manna?
So good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I hope you take that, you chew on it. Only one of them can actually be chewed on. It's a hint. Clue. But really take this back to the Father. Test yourself if you feel like you are also in a downturn because the markets, the economy are also in a downturn. Your source of supply might be a little out of whack. That doesn't mean it's completely out of whack, but I mean, just like sometimes you have to go to the chiropractor because a rib is out of place or something. Maybe it's time to go get a checkup and get things realigned.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining today. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Have a great week.
See ya.
Thank you for listening. Join us every Monday and Thursday as we discuss trading on earth as it is in heaven. If you want to connect further, follow us on social media at market.mystics for Instagram and TikTok, and search for Market Mystics on YouTube and Facebook. If you still need more, follow the link on Facebook to book a coaching appointment. Until next time, see ya.